Before muskets cracked the air, before cannon fire shook the earth, and long before the shriek of drones haunted the sky, there were other terrors on the battlefield. Among the clash of iron and the cries of men, another sound carried a different kind of fear. The guttural bark of a war dog, muscular, relentless, and loyal to the point of death. These creatures embodied both devotion and destruction. For the Roman soldier, one name came to define this four-legged comrade: Canis Pugnax. Not a pet to warm the campfire, nor a mere guard chained to a gate. It was a living weapon, bred and shaped to serve Rome's ambitions. Yet beneath the armor of muscle and the drills of discipline lay something far more poignant: a creature of loyalty, pressed into a world of cruelty. To know the story of the Canis Pugnax is to walk the uneasy line between admiration and sorrow, for in its shadow lies both Rome's power and its tragedy. The Canis Pugnax did not emerge from nothing. Its blood traced back to the rugged mountains of Epirus, where shepherds relied upon the Molossian hounds to guard their flocks. These dogs were immense, fearless, and unyielding in their devotion to the task. Aristotle himself wrote of their power, and poets sang of their strength, creatures capable, it was said, of facing even lions. In those days, they were not symbols of terror, but guardians of life and livelihood. Rome, however, viewed the world differently. What the Greeks cherished as protectors, the Romans saw as potential soldiers. They imported these Molossians, crossing them with local stock and the savage hounds of barbarian tribes. Slowly, a new animal was forged, one designed not merely to defend but to kill at command. Standing near 60 centimeters tall, weighing close to 50 kilograms, with dark coats that swallowed the night, their presence was formidable. And yet, the tragedy lay not in their teeth or their strength, but in their eyes. Eyes bred for loyalty, repurposed for violence, their fidelity bound to the ambitions of empire. Before the Canis Pugnax marched with legions, it bled in the sand. Rome, intoxicated by spectacle, transformed these dogs into instruments of entertainment. Kept hungry for days to sharpen their rage, they were loosed into arenas where condemned men, stripped of dignity, awaited their end. The crowd roared not at justice, but at carnage, as the loyal hounds became unwilling executioners. There were moments of grotesque theater. Dogs set upon wild beasts dragged from distant provinces, lions, bears, or monstrous boars. The outcome was not always certain, but the cruelty always was. For the people, it was exhilaration. For the animal, it was betrayal. These were not mindless monsters. They were creatures bred to serve, whose natural devotion was twisted into bloodshed for applause. Some grew famous, names whispered by the mob as if they were gladiators themselves. Yet beneath every cheer lay silence. The silence of a species pressed into chains of blood, forced to fight battles never of their choosing. In that arena, the Canis Pugnax was no companion, no guardian. It was a pawn in Rome's theater of cruelty, and its dignity was devoured with every ovation. Rome's enemies often carried with them strange weapons, but none unsettled the legions more than the war dogs of the Celts, the Germans, and the Britons. These animals hurled themselves at shields, tore at legs, and died over their masters' bodies. The lesson was clear. A dog could be more than a monster in the sand. It could be a comrade in battle. So the Canis Pugnax was taken from the arena and drilled into the ranks of Rome's military machine. No longer a creature loosed for spectacle,
Halt!
It became a soldier bound by discipline. Yet the transformation did not erase the tragedy. In the amphitheater, it was forced to kill for applause. In the legion, it was compelled to die for command. Its loyalty, once a gift freely given, was forged into a weapon sharpened by necessity. What set the Roman war dog apart was not only its strength, but its obedience. Unlike the tribal hounds that attacked blindly, the Canis Pugnax learned to recognize allies, hold position under fire, and wait for the order before striking. In this silent patience lay its nobility and its doom, obedience, even when obedience meant certain death. Thus, the beast of the circus became the brother-in-arms of the legionary. Like every recruit of the empire, the Canis Pugnax endured training as harsh as the stones of Rome itself. Its nose was taught to memorize the scent of comrades so that in the chaos of battle it would know friend from foe. It was drilled to resist provocation, to stand unflinching amidst the thunder of shields and the clash of steel. What was once instinct became discipline, and what was once a guardian became a sentinel of war. They marched with the legions across provinces, covering 30 to 35 kilometers in a single day. Straps bound small packs to their backs, carrying rations, messages, or tools. By night, while men collapsed into exhaustion, the dogs stood guard at the edges of the camp. Eyes sharp, ears pricked, shadows woven into the darkness. They were the sleepless watchmen of Rome's empire, creatures whose devotion outlasted even the vigilance of men. Among the soldiers, bonds grew strong. These dogs ate scraps from their masters' bowls, received rough bandages on torn paws, and in rare moments were spoken to with tenderness. In the bleak grind of campaigns, the Canis Pugnax was more than an instrument. It was a companion, a silent ally who never faltered. And in that companionship, there was beauty, even as the shadow of war claimed them both. The Canis Pugnax proved its worth not in training yards or parades, but in the brutal theater of war. At the Battle of Vercelli in 101 BC, the Cimbri unleashed their hounds to defend their camp. Roman witnesses recalled with awe and dread how those dogs fought to the very end, snapping at shields and biting through spears even as their masters lay dead. They endured longer than many men, dying only when pierced beyond all strength. For the legionaries who survived that day, the memory of those beasts was etched deeper than the clash of swords. In Caesar's campaigns through Gaul and Britannia, reports again tell of guardian dogs amongst the tribes, fearless creatures that hurled themselves at Roman lines with a savagery that unsettled even seasoned veterans. Rome's response was pragmatic: adopt what was useful. The Canis Pugnax was refined and drilled until it no longer mirrored the blind rage of tribal hounds, but embodied the discipline of the legion itself. On the battlefield, their charge was a sight both heroic and harrowing. Dark coats flashing in the dust, teeth glinting in the sun. They leapt into enemy ranks. Blood stained the soil, and their bodies fell beside the soldiers they had sworn, without words, to protect. Their silence spoke louder than any battle cry. Official history seldom spoke of them. Chroniclers praised generals, cavalry, or engines of war, but rarely gave a line to the dogs who marched, fought, and died unseen. Yet among the soldiers, memory endured. To the legionary, the Canis Pugnax was not simply a weapon, it was a comrade. Some were honored in death with modest gravestones, their names carved by grieving hands. Inscriptions described them as guardians, companions, even family. In rare moments of tenderness, a soldier would weep for his fallen dog as he might for a brother in arms. Others, upon retiring, led their war dogs back to distant villages, where the animals lived out their days not as warriors, but as companions by the hearth. These silent companions bridged the gulf between beast and man. They guarded prisoners, watched supply carts, and patrolled perimeters, but above all, they offered constancy. In a world of shifting allegiances and political betrayals, the loyalty of a dog was the one truth a soldier could trust, and that loyalty, given freely and returned with sacrifice, was perhaps the most human gift of all. Time, like the relentless march of legions, changed everything. As Rome's empire fractured and warfare evolved, the pure lineage of the Canis Pugnax began to fade. Crossbred with other dogs or extinguished by new styles of combat, the once proud warhound disappeared into history. Yet shadows of it linger still. In the drooping skin and solemn gaze of the Neapolitan Mastiff, or in the sleek, muscular build of the cane Corso, fragments of the old warrior remain. Look closely and you may glimpse it: the heavy chest, the guarded stance, the watchful eyes. These are not mere pets, but echoes of soldiers who once marched beneath the Roman standards. And yet, no matter how clearly the features survive, the soul of the Canis Pugnax, forged in fire, blood, and unwavering loyalty, can never truly return. What endures today is a ghost, a reminder of what loyalty cost when empire demanded obedience unto death. In those modern breeds, families see guardians and companions. But buried deep in their blood is a history unspoken of ancestors who fought lions in the arena, who stood sentinel in the forest of Germania, who fell silently beside their masters on forgotten fields. In the Chronicles of Rome, names of generals gleam, legions are celebrated, and war horses are remembered with honor. But the Canis Pugnax, that loyal soldier on four legs, remains largely absent. No great historian wrote a treatise for them, no triumphal arch bore their image. They were the unrecorded, the unsung, the invisible heroes of Rome. Yet for the men who marched beside them, their memory was sacred. They had seen dogs refuse to abandon their masters even in death, had heard their warning barks in the darkness, had felt the warmth of their loyalty in a world cold with ambition. To those men, the Canis Pugnax was more than a beast. It was a brother in arms. So let us give them what history denied: remembrance. Imagine the battlefield, littered with broken shields and fallen standards, where a dog lies lifeless across the body of its master. In that image lies all the tragedy and nobility of Rome itself. Glory entwined with cruelty, loyalty extinguished in silence. The Canis Pugnax deserves its place not only in the annals of war, but in the hearts of those who still value loyalty, courage, and sacrifice. They were soldiers without voices, companions without choice, and heroes without monuments. And perhaps that is why their story still moves us. Because in their silence, they spoke the loudest truth of all. Thank you for walking through history with me and for honoring the silent heroes of Rome. If this story moved you, leave a like, share it with others who love the past, and subscribe so we may continue this journey together. Till next time, take care, and may loyalty and courage guide your path.